What's up, man?
Hey, Sean.
Hey, thanks for joining me today on Service to Sales Vets Helping Vets, sponsored by Shift Group.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I've been following Grayson for a little bit since he started his cookie company, and he's kind of piqued me and my founder JR's like interest. We're like, hey, this is a pretty interesting thing. He goes from serving in the military to transition into a corporate job to getting into selling cookies to as more as like a marketing type uh like play. So what I
Yeah.
like to do is first you can spend like a couple minutes like just telling us about you know when you joined the army, what you did in the army, and a little bit about your transition into what you're doing right now.
Yeah. yeah. Well, thanks again for having me, and glad to see that JR enjoyed the cookies. Yeah, my military career started, for 6 months after high school. Um, Joined uh, in the reserves, actually, in 2009, and then a year and a half later was deployed. So it was kind of the recruiter was right kind of deal. He was it was so funny because I was debating whether to go active duty or reserve, and the bonus structure happened to be different, right? Um, the bonus for a reservist was like 5 times more than active duty, and the recruiter was like, "You'll still get deployed." And he told me like in less than 2 years, because that was kind of how the deployments worked. But yeah, so reserves for the first year and a half, deployed to Afghanistan. My background MOS was military police, and then yeah, transitioned right into a corporate job, um, working really at the same company I've been at for 13 years. So cookies are actually relatively new. So that's 2021 is when that all started. So
So what did you do in the military exactly? What was your MOS? And
uh, yeah, so military police, 31 Bravo.
okay,
Um, and then deployment was 31 Echo, which is detainee corrections. So
okay. So when
yeah,
you what do you do in your corporate job?
logistics,
Okay.
supply chain. Yeah. So
So
I'm just bounced around
so when
within
you
that.
made this like I've seen your story on a couple podcasts, like you were traveling around, your wife needed a hobby and all that stuff, and she created
Hmm.
this cookie. What made you come up with the idea of getting on LinkedIn and kind of getting into the sales space and use it as like a sales and marketing tool?
Um, I mean, very quickly after we started in January of 2021, like 3 weeks, 2 weeks, yeah, 3 weeks later, after launching, we were approached by my buddy and his father's wealth advisory practice. They are huge on touch point marketing, and they were sending gift cards, C's, candies, kind of your more traditional run of the mill gifts. Um, I had my wife and I had just happened to take the cookies over to their house, uh, unknowing that they even really did this. Um, they had the cookies and they're like, "Can you guys ship these?" And again, my warehousing and just experience within logistics, kind of a little cocky, if you will. Yeah, I can ship them. And so the next day, shipped them out. They got them the next day, and they loved it, loved the presentation, rolled with us. And from there, we kind of were introduced to B2B. We rolled with them for 6 months. They're still our longest standing client. We've been rolling with them for over 2 years now. But 6 months after launching, I was like, maybe I should start cold calling other wealth advisors, see if they kind of do this like whole touch point client based marketing, if you will. Um, and yeah, LinkedIn just seemed like the best strategy for that, because pretty much anyone in business to business, financial advisors, has a LinkedIn profile, and it's just an easy way on top of cold calling. Um, I basically just layered that on top of our cold calling strategy, and Yeah, hit the ground running. I mean, within the first 3 days of like starting to cold call other advisors, we had another client, and just kind of just kept rolling with it. So
Yeah, so I mean, I also I was telling you before this live started that I have a small business also,
yeah.
and from like the month I started it to the essentially the second month, I scaled it to like what most people does in like a year. Is that
Mhm.
kind of where you're at, or have you like are you essentially hyper scaled like beyond what you thought you were when you first started? Like you way ahead of where you're at?
Yeah, I didn't envision being here in our own shop with 4 team members who are, pumping out over, well, 16,000 cookies a month. So,
Oh, wow.
um, yeah, so I mean, it's interesting. We operate under a unique model to conventional cookie companies, right? Most cookie companies would be, we're in a business park, but right across the street's a retail mall. That's where a cookie company would traditionally be, right? Retail mall, walk-in clients, um, customers, and that way. But because we were introduced to the whole B2B shipping from your house, um, uh, I don't know how to best describe it. I mean, just the B2B um, avenue that we took is just unique in itself, but it just allowed us to control our own destiny, if you will, um, and really with very little marketing budget.
Yeah.
So you pair LinkedIn, your cold calling strategy mixed in with a lot of community, and then you introduce the SaaS gifting space to it. Um, Man, you just yeah, you get to where you are or where we are right now. So I'm still growing.
So you didn't do any sales prior to Grove, nothing.
No,
You're yeah.
no.
So like that's the reason why I wanted to bring you on. So I'm kind of setting you up to where I'm trying to get to. So you
Oh
had
yeah,
zero sales, right, and zero marketing,
yeah, yeah.
and you're running around LinkedIn like a professional. The way you kind of operate on LinkedIn, it mirrors like a professional SDR or an AE that's had some, training. And so like, and I
Mhm.
think you could probably attribute that back to your core values. And so that's what I want to talk about is like, so what did you learn as your time as a military police in like what kind of, not necessarily the job, but just like the attributes and values you learn from your service, and how's that transition, and then you be able to start a cookie company with no knowledge, get on LinkedIn with no knowledge, and essentially run an outbound strategy with no knowledge and win. It seems like you're winning to me at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, you know, winning has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people, right?
Yeah.
We're having fun. I Just because of like the reserve um structure and the way it's, really, if you don't get a deployment, you really don't get to experience like true military like lifestyle, if you will. Um, and that's no discredit to anyone that hasn't been deployed and is a reservist. But on deployment, as a prison guard, essentially, for detainees that we captured, it's all about your relationship with the detainees, because it's not a one cell guard to one detainee operation. It's a cell block of detainees, over 40 men in each cell block, and there's 8 of them. So you're one prison guard training 5 Afghan national soldiers every day for 12 hours a day.
Yeah.
How are you going to win on that? How are you going to win at that relationship?
Yeah.
So how can you build that relationship as fast as you can with not only the detainees, but the Afghan National Army and your translator? Um, so I think that's a good one. I don't think patience does apply to sales, I think, and marketing, actually more marketing than sales, I think, just from the experience I've had so far. Um, and no one, just dealing with that many individuals on a daily basis requires a level of patience along with the nurturing of a relationship. And I honestly, persuading them to do what you want them to do. I mean, obviously, I have the authority being one of the prison guards on the floor, but life is a lot easier when you have people kind of moving with you than against you. So,
Yeah. How old were you when you went on that appointment?
21.
So this is kind of what I try to tell sales leaders that we meet with Shift Group, to try to sell
Yeah.
them on, like, signing up with Shift Group and hiring veterans is, think about the amount of responsibility you had at 21, right? You just explained it,
Yeah.
but you went wave tops. But I'll go a little deeper. Obviously, I wasn't a military police, but I did, like, detain a lot of people and take them to prison and all that stuff.
Yeah.
My career in
Yeah.
special forces. But you're sitting out of prison with some of the world's worst brainwashed terrorists that want to kill you every day. And then you have these, like, Afghan partners who, like, in the back of your mind can't be trusted, right? Because you've seen before you deployed, there's people that will, like, turn on you, and if the Taliban get to them, all that kind of stuff. So, like, you're in this high. It seems like it's like routine, but every day it's in the background. It's like high stakes, right? At any time, you can get killed, or one of your partner force Afghans can get killed, or there can be an uprising, which I've seen. When I was younger, there was one that fifth group had in Afghanistan in the beginning of the war. So, like, there could be an uprising, all this kind of stuff, and you're 21 years old, and you're in there managing that type of responsibility at that age. Not a lot of people get that, right? So if you take that and you apply it to anything in the civilian workforce, why can't you do it? That's what I tell these leaders. Like, why can't they adapt? It's not like somebody gave you a playbook on how to do that over in Afghanistan, right? You figured it out.
Yeah. What's the worst that can happen to you?
Yeah. So, like, that's my message, is, like, these young soldiers. Like, I work with a lot of young service members across all the services trying to get into sales, and they don't know how to talk when they're doing interviews and stuff. They don't know how to apply what they did in the military to. We do sales in the sales roles. And I get with them, like, kind of me and you were just talked about, and you tell me your experience, and I say, hey, if you can, you just told me how you sold, all those detainees and you sold your partner force to do what you do. So, number one, you can survive, and number two, you accomplish whatever your unit's mission was, right? So, you were able to figure that out at a very young age. So, I don't know. You got any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Experiences are what really mold you. And from just what I've done, my 13 years at a corporate job in logistics and management and supervisory roles, it's experience that truly molds you. And, again, if you're coming out of college, it's a little different. Trying to get into a sales role, you don't maybe have the experience. I've always kind of battled how to best. I think I just have I actually have a tough time explaining what I'm good at, or what how you were just explaining how people are trying to break into sales roles, and you're trying to get them to, extract what you've done and translate it into another role. It never really dawned on me until I had this cookie company.
Yeah. So when you and I apologize, I should have asked you this. Are you still in the reserves? Or are you out?
No.
You're out. Okay. So when the transition from National Guard reserves into civilian world is a little easier, because, like, a lot of, I don't know if anybody's listening, a lot of reservists and Guard members have jobs already, and that's it. But you still have to do a transition, right? Because in the back of your mind, I talked to a lot of reservists in National Guard. You still, in the Army, you're still under UCMJ sometimes, and you always have
Mhm.
deployments coming up and training to do, to plan for, and all that kind of stuff, right? So like, when you got out into logistics, were you on LinkedIn at all?
No,
Nothing. Like, did you even
nothing.
like create the profile like just because like you thought it was something you needed to do?
Um, no, it was unique in the way that my corporate career started. So when I went to basic training and came back, I started working at Sears Auto Center, and the job I had at the time, or at Sears, a job opened up at the company I work for now as a laborer, and that's actually how I started. And so worked there for a year, got my activation notice. The company kept my position open until I got back from deployment, and then hired me on full time. So I really didn't ever have to get on LinkedIn. I created a profile just because I think everyone was, and all my friends were graduating from college, so it seemed like a cool thing to do. And yeah, I didn't hop on LinkedIn until July of 2021, like, and actually started using it as a tool.
Okay, so the reason I ask is like explain. So you're like I said, you're pretty well known in especially like the SaaS sales circles.
Mhm.
I see on a bunch of lives and podcasts and engaging and stuff. Can you explain to service members that are transitioning, what your thoughts are on like how important it is to get on LinkedIn and build a profile and start engaging in, not even if you want to do sales, but just anything?
I mean, it's networking on a very, 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 very large scale and very fast. I mean, if that's your thing, right? Not a lot of people like the aspect of networking because of maybe how I mean, they're just apprehensive to the idea of it. Maybe they don't believe that they offer anything, but I think just from what I've experienced over the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I don't really have anything to offer. I have cookies.
Yeah.
But I don't look at it as like everyone's like a potential client to buy my cookies, right? Like I genuinely just, you just have to be genuine, really. If you can find a way to be genuine on the platform, and then be able to express yourself writing wise, I mean, that's just the quickest way to like really harness the power of LinkedIn, right? The, People just gravitate towards that. They feel like they know you just on a little more, just on another level up, really. It doesn't have to be anything more. And then when that starts to happen, then you get on shows like this, or, even just a phone call with someone, right? Those are just the most basic positive aspects of LinkedIn that I've noticed. If I were to redo it and I didn't have cookies, like that's, man, I'd get on there and I'd just try to follow as many people as I could, especially the bigger names, and just kind of mirror what they're doing, but add your own personality to it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go sergeant major on you for a second.
Please do.
You do have more to offer than just cookies, right? You have an entrepreneurial um, some people want to start their own business. They can follow you and your
Yeah.
journey, see how you did it. So you're offering that to the LinkedIn community. You're representing, you didn't spend a lot of time in Army, but you're still a vet. So you're like representing
Yeah.
like vets transitioning in this, entrepreneurship. Uh, you can, I'm telling you, man, like your networking is on point. So you can
Hmm.
offer that to people regardless of the
Yeah.
cookies. The cookies are famous because of, I mean, obviously they have to taste good when people get them, but you got them to people through your networking and your
Yeah.
marketing, right? So like
Yeah.
that's what you can offer to people. So I know you're being
Yeah.
modest, you're super modest, but you do have a lot to offer people. And then like your leadership experiences, even if you got out as like an E4 or whatever you were in the military, a lot of people can learn from that too. So like, yeah, you got more to offer than you think.
Yeah, that leadership point is a cool one to talk about because really you can be a leader at any rank.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really, most people are stopped from a leadership position because they just don't have the time and grade or the time and service. But that should never stop you from, I mean, you can be a leader under a leader by helping the leader. if that if that just mumble jumble made sense.
Well,
Um,
like I mean, I started my first unit, was I was in second of the 75th Ranger Regiment as a private.
yeah,
And even there, like the Army is a leadership university, right? It's a leadership culture. Like even there, it's like there's the senior private, there's like they give these like informal leadership roles to people because they're always trying to like mold leaders at a very young age. Just like we talked about in the beginning of this, is like because you get put in some pretty serious positions at a young age, and you got to be able to, you know, lead your way through that.
yeah, I totally agree. I just some people think they need to wait for the title to come before they can start leading, and it's like that's actually if you start leading before the title comes, getting the title becomes even like it's just better. A lot of people, I'm sure you probably experienced it, but when someone gets promoted into a leadership position, their whole attitude changes. You ever notice that?
Depends. It is depends on how they were raised, and what kind of leaders they had. But
Oh
like,
yeah,
yeah, I've seen it. Like, I know what you're talking about.
yeah. They go from like cordial, and then now they're an asshole,
Yeah,
and you're just like, dude, you did not need to do that. Like we respected you for who you were, not because of your title.
yeah,
Absolutely did not care about your title at that time, and I will respect your title now, but that title doesn't change who you are, right? So
exactly.
that's that's where I see a lot of issues coming about when leaders don't actually act like leaders before they're appointed a leader.
Yeah. My second SDR job, um,
Mm-hmm.
like I was in a pretty big company with I think it was like 80 SDRs or 60 or 80 SDRs, and
Yeah.
all the leadership was generally like young in age, and they all got promoted because they were like for their abilities as SDRs. Does that make sense? They were real
Yeah.
young, and they were just like crushing numbers through hard work and
Yeah.
dedication, and they got promoted. But like nobody ever taught them how to be leaders, right? So like,
Yep.
and here I come along, I'm this like new SDR guy that's like 40 with all this like leadership experience, and you know, even I wasn't in a leadership role, but like I find myself having all these conversations with my managers and directors on helping them like navigate the leadership terrain. You know what I'm saying? So like
Yeah.
you can always lead even if you don't have a title.
Yep.
And that's the kind of people that I think leaders in the sales world are looking for. If you don't have like any experience, then what do you bring to the table? And that's what the vets bring to the table is like the attributes of that they learn in service, and that's one of them, like a big one,
Yeah.
leadership.
Yeah.
Um,
I definitely agree.
so yeah, so you got on LinkedIn, like I said, and you started like kind of running an it's kind of like an outbound strategy, man.
Yeah.
And then you're how much of your I was curious, how much of your engagement is leading to inbound now? Are you getting more inbound, like people just hitting you up from what they see at LinkedIn, or are you still having to reach out to people?
Um, Jeez. Over the last like 5 months, it's been a lot more inbound than outbound. I'm just starting to pick that up. More email, just because obviously I have a lot going on.
Yeah,
Time blocking is going to become really important here, just from a cold calling standpoint. But yeah, man, over the last 4 or 5 months since February, it's been pretty much all inbound. And what's been really unique with that has been how the inbound process has worked, because everyone's pretty much funneling through our contact us form or corporate request form. And it's really cool to see how they're, in our form field, it says, how did you hear about us? And it's required free form text. And it's so cool to see people like, oh, I heard about you on LinkedIn. Or I saw, for instance, Sean had you on your podcast, had you on his podcast, loved your story, blah, blah, blah. Love to incorporate your cookies into our prospecting strategy, or marketers, like account-based marketing strategy. So,
I saw your post about Carl. Carl's a good buddy of mine.
Yeah. Like, that's a perfect example of like how impactful marketing can be, right? I don't even know how I'd find this guy. Like, he came from some company I've never heard from before. And he's like, hey, I want to set up we have like these custom storefronts that you can use. It's all kitted out in your logos and colorways. And it just looks like a branded presentation, and it's all digital. But he just found us through Carl's post and another guy named Jacob. And it's like 2 posts generated this guy to initiate like an inbound request, right? So it's just so unique the past 4 months, because I was so heavy on outbound in 2021 and 2022 to like this last 5 months or so has been inbound. So we operate under a unique model, because people can just order cookies right from our storefront and they don't have to say a word of how they found us. Or the contact us form works pretty well. So
how who taught you how to close deals? You just figure it out?
I mean, I'm presenting a product that most people know about.
Yeah.
It's a cookie.
Yeah.
What has been really helpful and unique in our prospecting and just kind of finalizing agreements has been the experience with sending free cookies to people.
Yeah.
That does 2 things, because like you mentioned earlier, cookies, we do offer more than just cookies. We offer an experience, and that's what people are trying to do when they're outbound, or trying to close their own deals, agreements, trying to get things just pushed over the finish line, right? It's all about the experience. So that's what I do to really kind of cement like new clients of ours is just give that experience. And I really just kind of, I mean, the cookies, they just do a good job of presenting themselves, and that's what our product is. And the experience is what they want, which leads to either more conversations, more deals closed. The list of things go on from a touch point standpoint.
But you haven't had any formal training? You just kind of figured it out?
No.
Trolling around and listening to people and stuff?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. Like 8 of my friends are in the SaaS space as far as sales go. So I grew up at least the last 12, 13 years. I'm 33. They're all AEs now, but when they were all SDRs and I was doing my logistics job, I'd hear all the SaaS SDR commotion going on the weekends. And, I just was around kind of what they were talking about. So it just kind of seemed natural to like pick up a phone, because I just go, well, this is what my friends did. And, but from the training standpoint, I actually bought a course. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but his name's Jeremy Miner, and it's a sales training called NEPQ.
No.
Neural Emotional Persuasion Questions.
Did it work?
And that's been, fantastic. Because before getting on, when I first started cold calling people, I was a little too fast and, nerves, whatever. But that training really focused on tonality and kind of like getting a little deeper than the surface level issues at hand. So for instance, wealth advisors, I already can figure out if they're gifting, like client gifting at the moment, because right off the bat, I can ask them. what are you guys using as far as a client gifting strategy? And be like, oh, we do gift cards for birthdays, we do Seas Candy, whatever the case may be. And I go, well, how has the feedback been on that? And most of the time they'll go, well, we don't really hear much. And that just leads me in
money into the wind.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. In their whole business.
Yeah.
And their whole business is referrals, right? So it's like the more touch points and communication you have with your clients, the more opportunity you have to ask for a referral. And most of the time, if someone's willing to go out of their way to say thank you or write you a handwritten note and mail it to you saying thank you, I think you have a pretty good chance of utilizing that person as, a potential referral partner. And it's been really cool to see. I didn't believe that our cookies could do what they do for the wealth advisor community, but I have seen multiple handwritten notes from their clients, like saying, thank you so much for sending us cookies from Grove Cookie Company, blah, 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 blah. And that gave me the confidence to know, like, oh, we actually have an experience product if it's generating that sort of response.
It's like I'm not big into buzzwords, but essentially, it's like a product-led growth model, right? Because you're giving away
cookie-led growth.
Yeah, you're like you're giving away free cookies, and and it leads to you probably selling, like I don't know how many cookies did you send JR? How many come in is like six?
Six.
So he gets 6 cookies, and I guarantee, like just from him posting about it, you're gonna sell another 6. So like as long as you sell like 6 more, then you're like even, and then you sell 6 more after that. Now you're positive, right?
Yeah, and then you take our proposition, or just our ICP, which is account executives or business owners or marketing professionals, really anyone in revenue. Yeah. You have the potential to, 6 cookies can turn into 1,000 cookies. And
it's awesome too.
Like snap of a finger.
You're not like hamstrung to any industry. It's like anybody that has marketing and sells anything can use your cookies. It doesn't have to be SaaS. It can be manufacturing. It can be B2C. It can be the government's weird because they don't want gifts, but it could be anything.
Yeah. Other logistics companies. So third-party logistics companies, that's a very cutthroat industry that is always fighting each other. So how do you retain clients? Touch points.
And
what would you
financial advisors,
mortgage advisors,
medical sales, doctors' offices, it could be anything.
But like we've really honed in on like the niching down into the sales SaaS community because twofold. One, a lot of them, not everyone, but there's a great community on LinkedIn that we've just been kind of welcomed with open arms to be in. And number two, when you're dealing with a digital product, it's very hard to like build rapport with someone when you're continuously just selling a digital product that isn't physical, that isn't, like we're doing phone telesales, the whole thing. Sending a physical product is just a nice relationship bridge. Like, hey, thanks for attending the demo. It was great chatting with you. Here's a box of cookies, with a gift message with your logo. It's just another touch point, because we all know the longer the time from demo to talking again, it's just, you're just increasing like the chance that a deal just doesn't happen. Right. So there you go. That's it.
Have you ever thought in the beginning, you guys ever think about quitting? Were you like, was there a time when this was like, hey, this is stupid. Like, what are we doing?
No, because I've always thought it's been so fun. It's just such a cool, for instance, I'm here with you right now.
Yeah.
Like I noticed that like right off the bat, when we got on LinkedIn, like just kind of the opportunities started like kind of just meeting new people. I think that's just so fun, networking and the way we're doing it. And we were quickly introduced to that with our cookies. And I never lost or thought about quitting. I mean, there were times where you're like, dang, this is a lot, especially when you're doing it from home, where your house just turns into an Amazon bakery, you know, your distribution center at your townhouse. 7 days a week, you're making cookies because you can't keep inventory. And, you know, it's just, I started listening to podcasts a lot, right?
Yeah.
From the entrepreneur side of things, it's all mindset. Obviously, there's a lot more to that, but mindset pushes you. And having that and having the podcast to listen to on a daily basis really just kind of, it cements in your mind that you're A, not alone, and B, you're not the first person to go through what you're dealing with emotionally. So those have been very helpful for me in not wanting to quit.
So what was your hardest experience in the Army? Did you ever run into something where like, this is like what am I doing? Like why am I like? Was there any time in the Army where you're like, what am I doing? This is like, you know,
uncomfortable. Well, obviously dealing with detainees, you can imagine what can go wrong. I mean, there was plenty of times on deployment where you're just like, what am I doing? This sucks. This is terrible. But again, you go back to the mindset thing. You're here. How do I make the best of it? You know, they'll throw anything on you. Think about that one. You just create that in your mind. I don't need to gross anyone out, but they'll gladly throw anything on you.
Yeah.
If you do something right, that they don't agree with. So those are like, dealing with that. Even coming home was really hard. You know, you have a thought in your mind of like, oh yeah, when I come home from deployment, everything is just going to be great. And life is just it's going to be awesome from here on out. And I think that transition was very hard for me. Just from, mental side of it. You know, I'm 21, I turned 22 and I returned. Yeah. So you're just going through a lot of change, growing up. And the transition back home was, man, I did not want to be in the reserves anymore. I'll tell you that much. Going to Fort Lewis, Washington, in Tacoma once a month was not, I mean, doing, you know, again, it's one weekend a month. It's not that big of a deal, but you get back from deployment and you kind of just see how it was and see what's going on there. You're just like, okay, I'd like to be done now. But I had 4 years.
After that experience though, and time, you can look back and you're like, man, I miss all my buddies and all that kind of stuff, and I miss these experiences. And you start thinking about all the stuff you learned, right? You learn a lot. And then so like that's another thing that the vets bring to a company, and you kind of just hit it on, you kind of displayed it for the world to see. It's just like they don't understand the range of like mental resilience that you have to have. It's not, you weren't out there getting shot at, but like think about like you got to pack up like 2 bags and like a backpack, fly to 30 hours is the most dangerous country in the world. Hang out there for how many months were you there?
12 months, a year.
Yeah, a year, getting poop and stuff thrown at you, you know, thinking somebody's going to shoot you in the back every day. And then like missing your family, missing your freedom, missing your ability just to drive, like all the stuff that people take for granted here, missing, you know, sport, anything, like watching sports in the day, you know, like, cause you're like 24 hours behind. I don't know if you're married at the time, but like you're not
No.
dating, like you're just missing everything, just the freedom of movement, right? You lose your freedom of movement, and and then one day you just like pack it all up, fly back after a year, and your life is kind of in shambles, and you have to like put it all back together and then get back on track, right? And then for you, you're a reservist, so you got to go back to your job, right? That you've been gone for. So like there's all this stuff going on, and you just like kind of fight through it. And I use this term a lot, but you won, right? And then you got your stuff back together, and you just kept moving forward in life. But that takes a lot of mental toughness. People understand, like you don't have to be like the guy that's in the firefight all the time, but it's just like the way I kind of just explained it is like it's just like some people wouldn't even be able to just handle packing 2 bags in a backpack and fly 30 hours. That causes a meltdown.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. You're exactly right. It's unique. It's not for everyone, and it does. It requires a lot of mental resilience.
And I think why I'm not, it's probably a combination of the way you're raised and your service and all that stuff, but like, what you and your wife are doing is pretty amazing, and you can a lot of people would just quit, because it's hard. Selling stuff's hard. Being responsible for employees is hard. Investing
the capital.
Yeah. Like grow. You know what I'm saying? So like it's all hard, and you're going through it with a smile and having fun, and I think that shows a lot to do with your character and stuff. So like we got 3 minutes. Is there anything that you'd like to share that I didn't ask about?
No, we've been beneficiaries, just like from a Grove Cookie Company standpoint, just like the warm welcome we've received from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Especially on LinkedIn, obviously, because the networking effect on there is, you just can't beat it. But man, my wife and I both are just very grateful that we've received that. I'm kind of seems weird, but when you write on LinkedIn, it's just such an interesting thing, as maybe you experience. You're like just like writing for yourself almost, and hoping it resonates with people, and what we talk about and what I talk about on there seems to be doing that. And just very grateful for just the support, like from yourself. I mean, like, it's just, I didn't know that could happen. I wasn't part of the strategy when we started Grove Cookie Company was this. So
yeah, it's cool, man. I really appreciate you stopping by today. Which if you want to meet with you, talk about your experience, and how, like, if you're a marketer or a salesperson, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, the easiest way is just on LinkedIn, Grayson Hogard.
Just hit you up.
I actually think you could type in the cookie guy and I'll pop up.
Okay. Are you sure that's trademark? I feel like somebody else had that prior to you. I see your little trademark.
No. This is mine. No, the trademark means absolutely nothing. When you have an R, that's when it's real. Trademark, you could put trademark on Sean if you wanted to. You can do service to sales, vets helping vets, trademark. Trademark means absolutely nothing. And I just think it's funny. Everything I do is pretty much to make me laugh anyways, and hopefully other people laugh. That's what we do here.
Hey, I just thought of something.
Tell me.
What happens if you set up something where Americans can like order cookies, and then can you send them APO? You send them over to like
so you could easily. Yeah. The problem is our cookies aren't shelf stable for longer than 7 days. But, as time progresses, that would be a huge initiative we would love to do.
Bro, we
especially
got
like
barbecue
uh,
dropped on us in Syria and Yeti coolers. So
yeah,
you can make
yeah.
it
So I'm just
happen.
yeah, exactly. So like those sorts of initiatives are all part of like our overall roadmap growth like initiatives because I think it'd just be really fun to do
Yeah,
that.
man. Imagine getting like a fresh, like non-shelf stable cookie, dude. And if you're sitting in, northeast Syria right now, like like on Top Guard, you're like, what's Jay
Yeah.
say? You're eating them like TikToks or Tic Tacs. He's like, I can't say like Tic Tacs, but cool, man. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. Hey, we'll try to help you get your name out there. I know you're already out there, but we'll do what we can on the shift group side. JR really
Yeah.
like cookies and keep in touch, man. I really appreciate you
Yeah.
stopping.
Well, thanks, Sean. It's been great getting to know you more and following
Yeah.
you on LinkedIn. So
Hey, stay on real quick. Don't log off. I'm in the broadcast.